Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. After 15 years working in other people's kitchens, I finally had my own place. Not some fancy restaurant with white tablecloths and pretentious plating, but something better, a deli that served food that reminded people of home, if home had a professionally trained chef who spent years perfecting family recipes. My grandfather immigrated to this country with nothing but determination and a handful of recipe cards written in his mother's handwriting. He opened a small sandwich shop that barely kept the family fed. My father expanded it into a proper deli but had to close when the economy tanked in 2008. I promised myself I'd bring it back someday, better than ever. I trained at the Culinary Institute, worked under 3 different James Beard Award winners, and saved every penny until I could make good on that promise. When I found the perfect corner spot in a mixed-use development with apartments above retail spaces, I knew this was it. The neighborhood was growing, with young professionals and families who appreciated good food but didn't always have time to cook. The space needed work. A lot of it. I emptied my savings account and took out a substantial loan to install top-of-the-line ventilation, a proper hood system, and equipment that would make most restaurant chefs jealous. I wanted to do things right. Before signing the lease, I meticulously reviewed the HOA regulations. Yes, this development had a homeowners association that governed both the residential and commercial properties. I made sure my business plan complied with every rule, down to the color of my sign and the hours of operation. I even attended a board meeting to introduce myself and my concept. They seemed supportive, even excited about having a quality food establishment in their development. I named my place after my grandfather. We opened 3 months ago to lines out the door. Our signature dishes, my grandfather's beef goulash with hand-pinched noodles, my father's garlicky white bean soup with smoked sausage, and my own contribution, a slow-roasted porchetta sandwich with pickled vegetables and herb sauce, quickly developed a loyal following. We weren't just surviving. We were thriving. Then the email arrived. Subject: violation notice. Cooking odors. Immediate action required. I read it 3 times, thinking it was a mistake. According to this notice from the HOA, my cooking, specifically the use of garlic, onions, and ethnic spices, violated a vague clause in the regulations about nuisances that interfere with the peaceful enjoyment of the premises. I was given 7 days to cease the production of offensive cooking odors or face daily fines of $150. I immediately called the number listed and reached a woman who identified herself as the HOA administrator. There must be some mistake, I explained. I reviewed all the regulations before opening. My ventilation system exceeds code requirements. No one mentioned any issues with cooking odors during the approval process. The board has received multiple complaints, she said in a bored tone. The president takes these matters very seriously. But I'm a deli. Cooking is what I do. It's like telling a hair salon they can't use scissors. I'm just relaying the board's decision. You'll need to address this at the next meeting if you wish to appeal. Tuesday at 7 p.m. I hung up and immediately called my contractor to double-check my ventilation system. He confirmed what I already knew. We'd installed a commercial-grade system designed for restaurants twice my size. There was no legitimate reason for complaints about cooking odors. Something wasn't right. The HOA meeting was held in the community room of the development. I arrived 15 minutes early, but the room was already half full. I recognized some of my customers among the residents, which gave me hope. I also spotted several other business owners from the retail spaces. When the meeting was called to order, I realized I'd never met the HOA president before. He wasn't at the meeting I'd attended months ago. He was a tall man with expensive-looking glasses and a permanent expression of distaste, as if he'd just bitten into something sour. Next item: violations by commercial tenants, he announced after moving through several residential issues. We have multiple complaints about cooking odors from the deli. I raised my hand. I'd like to address that, if I may. He looked annoyed at the interruption but nodded curtly. I'm the owner and chef of the deli, I began. I've invested heavily in a state-of-the-art ventilation system that exceeds all requirements. Before opening, I reviewed all HOA regulations and confirmed my business plan complied with them. The notice I received cited a vague nuisance clause, but cooking aromas from a deli are hardly a nuisance. They're expected and, according to my customers, quite pleasant. We've received complaints, the president said dismissively. The board has determined that the odors from your establishment constitute a nuisance under Section 8.3 of the covenant. May I ask how many complaints, and what specifically they object to? He shuffled some papers. That information is confidential, but the board's decision is final unless overturned by a vote. One of my regular customers, an older woman who lived in the building next to my shop, raised her hand. I live directly above shops, and I've never been bothered by any smells from the deli. In fact, I love walking past and smelling the fresh bread and soups. It's one of the reasons I chose to live in a mixed-use development. to be close to wonderful small businesses. Several others nodded in agreement. The president cut her off. Your personal preferences aren't relevant. The board is responsible for maintaining property values and ensuring all residents' comfort. Another business owner, who ran a bookstore 2 doors down from me, spoke up. I've been here 3 years, and I've never seen the nuisance clause applied to normal business operations before. What's changed? The president's face tightened. Nothing has changed except our commitment to enforcing our regulations. Perhaps previous boards were lax, but I intend to ensure this development maintains its proper character. Something about the way he said proper character raised my hackles. I have detailed specifications of my ventilation system here, I said, holding up a folder. I'd be happy to have the board review them or arrange for an independent inspector to verify that my system properly eliminates cooking odors. That won't be necessary, the president said. The board has already made its decision. You have 4 more days to comply before fines begin. Comply how, exactly? I asked, trying to keep frustration out of my voice. I'm a deli. Cooking is what we do. Are you asking me to close my business? That's not the board's concern. You need to eliminate the offensive odors or face the consequences. A man I didn't recognize stood up then. I move that we give the deli owner a 30-day grace period to address the issue with specific guidance on what needs to change. Seconded, called several voices. The president looked annoyed but had to acknowledge the motion. All in favor? Hands went up all around the room. Easily a majority. The president's mouth tightened into a thin line. Motion carries, he said tersely. You have 30 days to eliminate cooking odors that can be detected from outside your establishment or in common areas. Next item. As the meeting moved on, I sat there stunned. What they were asking was practically impossible. Even with the best ventilation, some aromas would escape when doors opened. And what kind of deli didn't smell like food? As I was leaving, the bookstore owner caught up with me. Hey, don't let them get to you. This is a new thing since the president took over 3 months ago. He's been targeting all the businesses with nitpicky violations. Why? I asked. She lowered her voice. Word is he's trying to drive down commercial rents or force businesses out. His brother-in-law apparently wants to open some upscale dining concept here, but all the spaces are currently leased. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. His brother-in-law is in the restaurant business? Some kind of fancy small plates place, I heard. The president has been dropping hints about elevating the commercial offering since he took over. That explained a lot. The next day, I called a lawyer who specialized in HOA disputes. Her name was recommended by another business owner in a different development who'd faced similar issues. Unfortunately, this isn't uncommon, she explained after I laid out the situation. HOAs wield considerable power, but they do have limitations, especially when it comes to interfering with the normal operation of an approved business. So they can't actually force me to stop cooking? It's complicated. The nuisance clause is purposely vague, which gives them leeway. But there's a potential conflict of interest here with the president's relative wanting to open a competing business. Did the president disclose this conflict during the meeting? No, not at all. That's our first opening. Board members must recuse themselves from decisions where they have a personal interest. If we can prove he's targeting you to benefit his relative, that's a clear violation of his fiduciary duty. How do we prove that? We need evidence, communications between them, witnesses who've heard him discuss it, a pattern of selective enforcement against businesses that would compete with his relative's concept. I thought about the bookstore owner and others who seem to have issues with the new president. I might be able to find some of that. What should I do in the meantime? I can't just stop cooking. You have a few options. You could fight this head-on with a cease and desist letter, which might escalate things quickly. Or you could appear to comply while documenting everything and building your case. What would appearing to comply look like? I can't turn off my stove. Get creative. Maybe you modify your menu temporarily in a way that makes it clear to customers why you're doing it. Document all losses. Keep records of everything. I thought about it overnight and came up with a plan. I created a special HOA-approved menu. I removed everything that required significant cooking or aromatic ingredients. Gone were the goulash, the white bean soup, the porchetta. In their place, pre-made cold sandwiches with minimal ingredients, plain turkey, ham and cheese, tuna salad with hardly any seasoning. Next to each missing item on the menu, I placed a small note, temporarily unavailable due to HOA restrictions on cooking aromas. We apologize for the inconvenience and hope to bring back your favorites soon. At the bottom of the menu, I added the email address for the HOA board, suggesting that customers with concerns could reach out directly. I also placed a sign in the window explaining the situation in neutral, factual terms. No accusations, just information. The impact was immediate. Business dropped by 60%. People came in, saw the limited menu, and many walked out. Those who stayed often complained about the bland food. Despite my explanations, I kept meticulous records of daily revenue compared to previous weeks. The difference was stark and heartbreaking. But something else happened too. Customers got angry, not at me, but at the HOA. They asked for details, took photos of the sign and menu, shared them on social media. Local food bloggers picked up the story. A reporter from the local paper came in for an interview. Meanwhile, I was doing some investigating of my own. The bookstore owner introduced me to other business owners who had faced similar pressures from the new president. A boutique forced to change their signage 3 times. A coffee shop cited for outdoor seating that had been approved by the previous board. A salon suddenly facing complaints about chemical odors despite being in operation for 5 years without issues. Then came a breakthrough. A resident who was sympathetic to my situation and happened to work for the city planning department did some digging. The president's brother-in-law had indeed filed preliminary paperwork for a restaurant concept in our development, 3 weeks before the president sent me the violation notice. I also discovered something interesting in the HOA bylaws. There was a rarely used provision allowing for the emergency removal of board members who had undisclosed conflicts of interest, provided a petition was signed by at least 25% of owners and an emergency meeting was called. I started collecting signatures that evening. 2 weeks into my HOA-approved menu experiment, my business was hanging by a thread. Regular customers came in to express support, but many couldn't stomach the deliberately bland food. That was kind of the point. I was dipping into my savings to make payroll and had to reduce my staff's hours. But the petition was gaining momentum. Not just business owners but residents too were signing, especially after trying my new menu. Many had no idea the HOA president was targeting businesses, and they weren't happy about losing access to their favorite local spots. The president must have gotten wind of what was happening because he showed up at my deli during the lunch rush. He waited until I had a moment between customers and approached the counter. "I understand you've been spreading misinformation about the board's decision," he said, voice low but intense. "I haven't said anything that isn't factual," I replied, keeping my tone even. "My menu clearly states that certain items are unavailable due to HOA restrictions on cooking aromas. That's exactly what your notice stated. You're manipulating customers and turning them against the HOA. I'm being transparent about why I can't serve the food people expect from us. If they have concerns about that policy, they're free to express them." His face reddened. "This is a nuisance establishment. Your cooking odors are affecting property values and resident comfort." A customer who had been waiting nearby stepped forward. "I've lived here for 5 years, and the only nuisance I've experienced is not being able to get a decent sandwich anymore because of your ridiculous rules." The president glared at him, then back at me. "The fines will begin next week if you don't fully comply. No cooking at all." After he left, the customer, a middle-aged man I recognized as a regular, leaned over the counter. "I'm on the city council," he said quietly. "This isn't right. We approved this development specifically as mixed use to create a vibrant community with local businesses. I'd be interested in hearing more about what's happening here." That conversation led to another ally and another idea. By the time we reached the 3-week mark, I had enough signatures to call for an emergency meeting. I also had substantial evidence of the president's conflict of interest, selective enforcement, and pattern of targeting businesses that might compete with his brother-in-law's concept. The emergency meeting was scheduled for a Wednesday evening. I spent the days before preparing my presentation with my lawyer's help. We compiled documentation, witness statements, before and after revenue figures, and evidence of the brother-in-law's restaurant plans. The community room was packed that night, standing room only. Many wore buttons that read "Save Our Deli" and "Local Business Matters," which some supportive residents had made and distributed. The vice president of the board, looking uncomfortable, called the meeting to order. The president sat stony-faced beside her. "We're here to address a petition calling for the removal of the president due to alleged conflict of interest," she began. "The petitioners will present their case, followed by the president's response, and then a vote will be taken." My lawyer and I approached the podium. She introduced herself and laid out the legal grounds for our petition, then turned the floor over to me. 3 months ago, I was running a successful deli that many residents considered an asset to this community, I began. Today, I'm operating at a loss, serving food that doesn't represent my training or heritage because of restrictions that appear to be selectively enforced against businesses like mine. I showed slides comparing my revenue before and after the HOA-approved menu, customer testimonials, and documentation of my ventilation system specifications. "But this isn't just about my business," I continued. "It's about transparency and fairness in how our HOA is governed." I revealed the documentation showing the president's brother-in-law's restaurant plans, time-stamped before my violation notice. I presented statements from other business owners who had faced similar targeting. I showed the pattern of selective enforcement, how restaurants with different concepts than the brother-in-law's planned establishment had been cited, while others hadn't. Most importantly, I concluded, the president failed to disclose this clear conflict of interest while using his position to target potential competitors to his relative's business. This violates both HOA bylaws and his fiduciary duty to all members. The room was silent when I finished. The vice president asked if anyone else wished to speak in support of the petition. One by one, business owners and residents came forward. The bookstore owner described the pattern of harassment she'd observed. The city council member spoke about the importance of diverse local businesses to the community's character. Residents talked about how the deli and other shops had become gathering places that enhanced their quality of life. Finally, the president took the floor. "These accusations are preposterous," he began, his voice tight. "I've simply been enforcing regulations that previous boards neglected. The fact that my brother-in-law may open a business here someday is irrelevant. The cooking odors from the deli are objectively offensive and have generated multiple complaints. Could you share those complaints with us?" my lawyer asked. "With names redacted for privacy, of course." He shuffled papers nervously. "That would violate complainant confidentiality." "How many complaints have been received, specifically?" "Several." "More than 3? More than 2? Was there even one formal complaint filed?" His silence was damning. A board member who had been quiet until now spoke up. "I've served on this board for 4 years, and I don't recall seeing any formal complaints about cooking odors from the deli or any other establishment. Our complaint log is available to all board members, and I reviewed it yesterday. There's nothing there." The president's face flushed. "Not all complaints are formally logged. According to our bylaws, they must be," the board member countered. The vice president cleared her throat. "I believe we've heard enough to proceed to a vote. The petition calls for the removal of the president due to undisclosed conflict of interest and abuse of position. All in favor?" Hands rose throughout the room. It wasn't even close. "Motion carries," she announced. "According to our bylaws, the vice president assumes the role of acting president until the next regular election. This meeting is adjourned." As people began to file out, many stopped to congratulate me or express support. The now former president left quickly, avoiding eye contact with anyone. The newly appointed acting president approached me as I was gathering my materials. "I want to apologize for this situation," she said sincerely. "I should have questioned these actions sooner. The nuisance complaints against your deli are hereby rescinded, effective immediately. I'd also like to discuss appropriate compensation for the financial impact you've suffered." The next morning, I arrived at the deli early. For the first time in weeks, I fired up all the burners. I chopped onions and garlic, browned meat for goulash, simmered beans for soup. The kitchen filled with the aromas I'd missed so much: paprika and bay leaves, roasting pork and simmering stock. When we opened at 11, there was a line out the door. Word had spread quickly about the outcome of the meeting. I'd posted on social media that our full menu was back, and people had shown up in force to celebrate. My staff moved efficiently through the lunch rush, serving plate after plate of the food that had made us popular in the first place. I worked alongside them, plating dishes and greeting customers I hadn't seen since the restrictions began. As the rush died down, I took a moment to add a new special to our menu board: the HOA special, porchetta sandwich with extra garlic, rosemary, and fennel. Next to it, I wrote, "A reminder of why it's worth fighting for what you believe in." That sandwich sold out in an hour. The following weeks brought more good news. My lawyer negotiated a settlement with the HOA to cover my documented losses during the bland menu period. I used part of it to expand our outdoor seating area, which had always been popular in good weather. The former president's brother-in-law abandoned his restaurant plans for our development after several potential investors backed out, citing community relations concerns. I heard they found space in another development across town. The new HOA leadership implemented transparency measures, including a requirement that all complaints be formally documented and accessible to affected parties, and stricter rules around conflicts of interest. Most importantly, business bounced back stronger than ever. The publicity from our fight brought in customers from all over the city who wanted to taste the food that had caused such a stir. Many became regulars. 6 months later, I hosted a community appreciation event outside the deli. We served all the dishes that had been temporarily banned, plus some new creations. The acting president, now elected to the position permanently, was among the honored guests, along with the business owners who had stood with me and the residents who had signed the petition. As I looked around at people enjoying my food and each other's company, I thought about my grandfather and father. They had faced their own struggles to keep their delis going in different times and places. I wish they could see that I'd not only carried on their culinary legacy but had also fought for it when necessary, and won. The HOA special became a permanent fixture on our menu. It's still our best seller today, a reminder that sometimes the most important ingredient isn't garlic or spice, but the courage to stand up for yourself and your community when something isn't right. And every time I prepare it, I make sure to use plenty of garlic. The next one is entitled People Story. So I, 22F, got a car as a graduation present when I was 18 from my father, who has since died of cancer. It was only a couple years old, and it's a pink buggy. Edited to add at the request of a commenter. It's a 2013 model. I absolutely adore it. I've always been pretty girly and it was the perfect car for me. I wasn't some spoiled little rich kid though. I paid my own insurance and gas, and my father saved for years to get me my dream car if I graduated with a 4.0, which I did. I take such good care of it inside and out, and everyone in my life knows how much it means to me, for aesthetic reasons as well as sentimental. Anyways, I turned 23 next week, and today I was inside watching TV when my boyfriend, 38M, who I thought was running errands, came home excited and told me to come outside. I ran out and saw a light silver car in the driveway. I was kinda confused cause I already have a car, but I was trying not to show it. I asked what year it was and he said 2001. He told me he bought it off some guy for $700, and the only repairs it needed was new tires and brakes, saying, "You can finally sell your bug now." He wants to use that money to take a vacation after travel bans lift, too. I told him nicely that I appreciated the gesture, but that I already had a car that I love, and that's much newer and more reliable. He got pissed off and told me how ungrateful I was being and that I was some spoiled little kid who didn't know what it was like to work for anything, which is BS. I pay most of our bills and have a savings. He spends all his on weed and video games. He then basically told me, with much more cussing and screaming, that he wasn't going to be driven around in some ugly little kid car anymore, and it's embarrassing that his younger girlfriend drives him to work and events etc., and something straight out of a 2000s teen movie. I told him he could use the car he'd just bought to drive himself around then, and he said no because he doesn't like driving. He wants me to do it, just not in my bug. At that point I was at a loss and went back inside, and he then kicked the side of my bug, got in the silver car, and took off. Idea key where he is now, and I don't care. I feel like he got me a gift for him and not me, and proceeded to insult me for telling him I don't want it. I told my friend about it and she took his side, saying I need to take his feelings about it into account and that my bug is kind of embarrassing, and I'm too old for it now. Idea what to think. I love my car and I don't want to change who I am just cause I'm a few years older now, but I also don't want this car to ruin my relationship. I also feel bad cause I basically said F you to his gift, which was pretty expensive as far as gifts go. I don't want to get rid of it, but if I'm the asshole for being stubborn and reacting the way I did, then I'll definitely apologize and maybe give it to my 15-year-old cousin so I can still have a connection to it. Update. A mini one. I definitely hear you guys loud and clear. I don't know if I was willfully ignorant before or just naive, but I realize now that this goes deeper than just a car. The longer I think about it, the madder I get, and everyone's comments are making me feel like I'm not so crazy anymore, so thank you. I now get that I'm getting nothing out of this relationship. And him kicking my car honestly did scare me, and I don't want him to eventually do that to me. He texted me a little bit ago saying I needed to choose the bug or him, along with some name calling etc. So, I've decided to choose my bug, and by extension my dad. WND break up with him / cut him out completely. I reconnected with my older brother who lives a town over and explained everything to him. He didn't know any of it. He's letting me stay with him for as long as I need because I'm scared of what my ex will do. I'm taking all valuables, documents, etc. and informing the police about him kicking my car. My neighbor also watched the argument and is going to vouch for me. He isn't on the lease so I can easily kick him out, but we were planning on moving anyways, so I'll just find my own place now. IDT what he'll do. Maybe he can sleep in his new car. The next one is entitled People Story. At our last company meeting they announced there would be a step competition. Participation was voluntary. If the average number of steps is greater than or equal to a 5K per day, all participants get a Friday half day. The person with the most steps overall wins an Apple Watch. We would log our steps during workdays only for 20 days. I've been in a funk lately and was glad for an excuse to get back into my fitness routine. I love running and asked if steps from running could be counted. Matt, who volunteered to manage the competition, said it did. My goal was 20,000 steps a day, thinking this would easily put me in the lead, but on day one this guy Dave posted 23,000. I sent him a message on Teams, saying something along the lines of "it's on." The next day I put up 24,000. He answers back with 25,000. Another co-worker Jenna also joined in. The three of us started having daily chats about our workouts. By week 2 it's looking certain one of us will win and the whole group is absolutely getting a half day off work. Then I checked the log and out of nowhere, Tiffany, who'd been posting 10 to 15,000 per day, posts 65,000 steps. For perspective, a marathon I ran resulted in 52,000. So I'm skeptical, but also, maybe Tiffany ran a casual ultra-marathon on a workday? Who knows? I sent her a Teams message. "That's a lot of steps. What's your secret?" She said she plays volleyball and wanted to count the steps from her games but can't safely keep her phone or watch on her to keep count. To solve this problem, Matt looked up a chart online that gives a step equivalent for other activities. Volleyball equals 89 steps per minute, tennis equals 133 SPM etc. Fair enough, but the math still ain't mathin', so I said, "Wow, you must have played for like 8 hours." Her reply: "While I also rode my bike." Now this is where I call bullshit, so I clarified you counted riding your bike? Turns out she didn't just use the chart for volleyball, she used it to count everything she did and convert it into steps. Bike riding, stretching, yoga, washing the dishes. All great, but those are not steps. This seemed pretty lame to me and I just said I don't think that's really in the spirit of this competition. And immediately went to Matt to ask about this chart, specifically if bike riding counted towards steps. He said bike riding didn't count. It was too different and also unfair since not every employee has access to a bike. I thanked him for clarifying and told him that Tiffany may also need some clarification. Not 2 minutes later I get this message from Tiffany. Really? You complained about me? That's actually not in the spirit of the competition. I lost a pet recently and have been so depressed. I've been struggling to lose weight and I was so proud of my steps from yesterday. Not everyone can be a marathon runner like you. Really uncool. I knew I was being a little cheeky going to Matt, but Tiffany's message really took me by surprise. Am I the asshole? Update: so the feedback on my last post made me feel like less of an asshole for sure, but what happened next definitely got rid of any remaining guilt I may have had. Tiffany won the steps competition. After I spoke with Matt, he tried to clear things up with Tiffany, but in his words she was combative and rude, so he ended up looping in our HR rep, Jill. Jill decided that Tiffany could keep her 65,000 steps and the rules would just be clarified for everyone going forward. Well, going forward, Tiffany continued to post 35,000 to 40,000 steps every single day. Less ridiculous than 65,000, but still ridiculous considering we all sit at desks 8 hours a day. It was still a tight race between the four of us, because we, Dave, Jenna and I, had been posting higher than Tiffany prior to the 65,000 step day. Then Dave got sick. He only posted 4,000 one day and that was enough for him to fall too far behind. Then I had something urgent and time-consuming come up at work and only got 10,000 steps that day. That was enough for me to fall too far behind too. So it was basically up to Jenna at that point and she was really working for it. Even got up at 4 a.m. the last couple days of the competition to try and max out steps. The highest she ever got to was about 41,000 and in the end Tiffany beat her by about 250 steps overall. Tiffany had zero issue happily accepting her award at the next company-wide meeting and gave this super annoying speech about how everyone did so great and how in the end she's just glad we all became more active and healthy. I never responded to the message she sent me about being depressed about her dog or whatever. At the end of the day, this is my job and I'm not trying to get into some messy and weird fight over an Apple Watch and an extra 4 hours on a Friday. The next one is entitled People Story. My wedding was put on hold due to coronavirus. During this time, Syl's grandfather got sick, so she traveled to stay with her family. I was left in charge of feeding her dog. My Syl has always grown beautiful flowers and succulents. She knows how much I admire her green thumb. Before she left, she cut all the heads off her roses. And this is where I made my mistake at the time. I did not know you could cut the heads off roses and make more grow. So when I was overfeeding the dog I noticed more growing and was amazed. Then the restrictions in my country were lifted. My husband and I decided to throw together a quick wedding ceremony. The idea just came to me to use the roses she'd grown, thinking that as she'd cut them she'd not know I'd taken any. As I was overcutting them, I remembered the succulents and decided to grab a few in their pots to use as centerpieces. We'd always wanted to get married in my grandmother's church and venue hall, which was 2 hours away from our home and Syl's home. Syl decided she'd come back for the wedding, but would fly into that local airport, then go straight to the local hotel instead of going home when she landed, then driving to the wedding and back all in one day. The wedding itself went beautifully. She was happy and I was so happy. Everyone was happy. We get to the after party and Syl notices the succulents, and gets very angry asking if they're hers, and how could I do that? She started trying to snatch them up. Unfortunately this caused a light fuss while I asked at her to stop, that she was ruining my wedding, while I grabbed at the succulent. She loudly said, "You're stealing from me." My family wrongly took this to mean they could take the succulents. The ones they didn't take did end up damaged as people touched the leaves and squeezed them. Syl took all my succulent centers that she could and left in a huff. After that the party died down. Pretty much everyone in her family took her side, whereas my family think it's flowers. It's ridiculous. When she arrived home the next day she noticed the roses gone, and sent a message saying how could I steal her plants without permissions, and that she was sick of me overstepping all the time. Personally I feel like they're just plants. They will grow back, and it's a shame for her to have spoilt the after-party when she could have just left the succulents and most people would have ignored them. But I also understand she spends a lot of time and money growing many of these plants and they are her pastime that I should have asked to use them. Update: one of you snitch posted it to a group, shaming weddings, showed me the screenshot. I found the group and have a mutual friend on it. Roses grow back. Succulents are €2 in grocery stores. But my life, my human life could be over. You've all left a strain on my beautiful memory over cheap plants. I, however, am going on vacation tonight. When I am back I will be buying some grocery succulents for my Sil, who told me no it's fine via Pirvati message when I asked if she wanted me to buy her some. So all your callouts are no good. I am not the cold person you frame me as. I love my sister and am heartbroken I crossed a boundary. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.